We on Fire Sports Podcast, the spot, season number 4, episode number 56. And man, I hope you guys had a great weekend, man, as we mosey on in the week. Hope you guys was able to kind of enjoy yourself, man, over the weekend as we get into this week, man. And I'm just checking out everything across the sporting landscape. And first and foremost, man, if it's your first time listening, we on Fire Sports Podcast, the spot. We provide hot fire takes and analysis across the sporting landscape. And if you're OG of the show, man, I appreciate the check-in, man, once again. And yeah, man, we into June, man, in the lovely month of June. And June represents summertime, man. School is out. You know, people go on family vacations in June, man. The weather is nice and everybody's pretty much reasonably in a good mood. And for the NBA, man, that means that it is center stage as we have the NBA Finals jumping off on Thursday night, ABC. And this has been a long season. And for me, man, coming into this season, you know, if you had to pin me down as far as, you know, who would get to the NBA Finals, and I had Denver and Boston. I thought that, you know, the Boston Celtics would at least get to the NBA Finals, try to defend the NBA championship, and I thought that the Denver Nuggets would get themselves back to the NBA Finals. And boy, was I wrong. But there was a lot of people that was wrong in that, as well as congratulations first and foremost to the Oklahoma City Thunder and also to the Indiana Pacers. Both these teams ran the gauntlet in the Eastern and the Western Conference respectively and got themselves here to an NBA Finals. And so you know we gonna get into that, man. Just big time matchup, man, with SGA. Also to Tyrese Halliburton for the Indiana Pacers. Battle of the guards. You know, this thing is just gonna be laid out, man. Just, you know, great defensive team. Just looking at Oklahoma City, just what they've been able to do so far this season. 68 wins in the regular season. And an Indiana Pacers team that has been hot as a firecracker, man, since New Year turned. And both these teams deserve to be here. Now, both these teams had some challenges along the way to get to the NBA Finals. So I can't wait to peel the onion back on that. I got that coming up on the slate. Also, breaking news, man, across the sports desk, man, breaking news. Tom Thibodeau, man, has been fired by the New York Knicks. I know you guys have probably heard the news at this point. And I'm not going to front, man. I'm kind of shocked about this. Man. Real talk. Because the Knicks, you know, obviously they went out on the sword, man, against the Indiana Pacers in the Eastern Conference Finals in game number 6. And shortly after the game, you know, I was having a conversation, man, with my girl, man, after the game. She, you know, watched the game as well. And she was like, man, I think they're going to let THIBS go. I think THIBS might be out of there. And I'm trying to talk off the ledge and be reasonable, you know, from a standpoint of, nah, man, he led the Knicks, you know, for the last 25 years, man, to a Eastern Conference Finals appearance. And this is an organization led by Leon Rose. You know, did a great job as far as the general manager of the New York Knicks and bringing in, you know, some talent to try to get the Knicks a step closer to eventually getting to the NBA Finals. And they showed THIBS the axe. Now, just to, you know, put all the information of what I heard out there is that I heard that it was a meeting with the owner, James Dolan, and those who follow the New York Knicks and know how to James Dolan get down. You know, he's an eclectic type of dude, man. You know, James Dolan is an interesting type of guy. And I thought, because James Dolan had not reared his, you know, power so far during the season, letting the Knicks cook, letting, you know, Leon Rose cook and letting THIBS do his thing, and, you know, the team playing some good ball, you know, especially in this playoff run that they just had. And I didn't think James Dolan would just do this, man. But here's where we at with it. Tom Thibodeau, man, has been fired by the New York Knicks. You know, the Knicks, to me, you know, their team, and there's been a lot of questions, you know, since the season have ended, you know, just less than 48 hours ago for the New York Knicks, is it a situation where Jalen Brunson, man, pounding a rock too much? Is it a situation where Karl Anthony Towns is not giving you just that elite type of vibe, even though he was third team All NBA this season? Is it Mikal Bridges not living up to snuff after the New York Knicks giving up 5 draft picks for this guy? So there's a lot of like subtle questions in New York, and any team that falls short of the NBA Finals, I mean, you got to look at your organization, from coaches, down to players, and see, if you guys are putting your best foot forward going into next season. Now, to me, there's been a lot of talk over the years about Tom Thibodeau, as far as him just playing his guys and stretching his guys out and not allowing his guys to have rest, and, his teams wear down towards the end of the season. To be fair with you, I did see a little bit of that. But to me, I just think that at the pace that the Knicks play, especially when Jalen Brunson is in his bag and Karl Anthony Towns is at the height of his powers, it would be a situation of where the Knicks shouldn't really have to worry about that. I mean, if you look at their roster top to bottom, they probably got a better overall roster than the Indiana Pacers. But the Pacers play at a collective unit, man. And that's, shout out to Rick Carlisle, head coach of the Indiana Pacers. Just the job that he's done since he's arrived in Indiana, coming from Dallas. Got himself back in another NBA Finals as a head coach. But I don't know where the Knicks go from here. The obvious, elephant in the room is probably going to be Mike Malone be the next head coach of the New York Knicks. And Mike Malone, just a guy that, literally just got fired by the Denver Nuggets, led the Denver Nuggets 2 years ago to an NBA championship. And Mike Malone's from New York. He's a New York guy. I mean, his old swag is NY. So I think that for me, if the New York Knicks, you're going to make a move and fire Tom Thibodeau, I think that Mike Malone is probably the best move for you at coach at this juncture. Mike Malone don't cut no mess, though. And I'm hearing some remnants about, the players kind of, giving some feedback into the whole situation with Tom Thibodeau, with James Dolan. And I don't know if that's a sly move by James Dolan, man. I can't put nothing past this guy. I mean, we all remember, man, what he did to Charles Oakley, man, sitting in Madison Square Garden, basically trying to get, security to get him, the Jazz off Fresh Prince of Bel-Air out of Madison Square Garden. So James Dolan, like I said, he's an eclectic type of guy, and I should have known better. But we'll see, man, what it do. Man, just a crazy situation with just that whole deal. Might circle back on that as well. Also, man, the thing that, there's been a lot of talk over the last couple of days. I hadn't put no sauce on it on my end. Is that whole situation with Stephon Diggs. Those who haven't seen the video, you got Stephon Diggs, lounging on a boat, chilling, having a good old time, man. He was pictured and seen with Cardi B on the same boat, a couple days before that or whatever, day before that, whatever, as Biggie Smalls would say. When I seen, the pink, Coconina come out, though, yeah, it's a whole situation. And this is a thing to where, yeah, you're going up to New England and Mike Vrabel, new head coach of the New England Patriots. All who know, Mike Vrabel, one of the stout players, man, for the New England Patriots during their title run during the early to mid 2000s. And, the apple don't fall too far away from the tree. Now, there's a lot of, talk about, he's a different coach than Bill Belichick. And we've seen that, obviously, with the job he's done or he did in Tennessee. But this still New England. This still Robert Kraft. And, I've been hearing remnants about, them discussing possibly releasing Stephon Diggs. And, I mean, I ain't no snitch or nothing, as they would say, but it looked like it was some pink Coconina, though. And if that's, if that's true of what I've seen, then, yeah, he on thin ice in New England. And it could be a situation where the New England Patriots turn the page and just move on from, Stephon Diggs. I mean, we seen him last season, with the Houston Texans. He showed, some pop as far as him still being, a good wide receiver in the National Football League, but he was nicked up. And now Stephon Diggs is not necessarily what you would consider a spring chicken per se. But, he's been in the league a minute. And teams, they're less tolerant, man, as that talent, goes down a little bit. Teams are a little less tolerant to deal with, off the, field type of situations. And so we'll see what that thing do, man, with Stephon Diggs, man. It's just a precarious situation, just for him. Obviously he's in a high-profile relationship with Cardi B right now. So I'm not sure what New England feeling about that whole situation, man. But we'll definitely circle back on that, man, if there's some movement across the news cycle and that whole situation. And then finally, man, just to look across Major League Baseball, man, we're going to get into a little Major League Baseball is baseball right now, especially with the NBA being at the final stage of the season. Baseball going to definitely take the forefront, man, as we get into those dog days of summer. So I'm going to circle in and check in on the MLB look, man. Shout out to my Chicago Cubs, man. Once again, man, being in first place, I'm definitely excited about that. The White Sox, man, we trying to get it together, man. And just all the other teams across Major League Baseball. Big time series, as I alluded to last episode, with the Los Angeles Dodgers as well as the New York Yankees. That thing went way left for the Yankees, man, and that, just a weekend slate that they had jumping off. And so, man, I appreciate you guys checking out the episode, man. Coming up, I'm going to break down my look and also to get my predictions in the NBA Finals coming up. First and foremost, man, I appreciate all the love and the feedback. I appreciate your ear. We on Fire Sports Podcast. The spots. Welcome back. And we're finally at the end of the NBA season. We're here on the grand big stage of the NBA Finals. And man, boy, just a lot of memories, man, overall, just on the NBA Finals, man. For the Indiana Pacers to come into this NBA Finals, their first NBA Finals appearance, man, since the year 2000. Reggie Miller, Jalen Rose. You had Larry Bird as the head coach of the Indiana Pacers. You had the Dale Davis, and Antonio Davis situation in Indiana. And Indiana Pacers are back. This team led by Rick Carlisle, former teammate of Larry Bird, man, with the Boston Celtics back in the day. As he gets the Pacers into the NBA Finals after knocking off the New York Knicks in 6 games in the Eastern Conference Finals. And it's just been a situation, man, just across the league as a whole, man. It's just about the new era, old era of the NBA. And I think that you can't front, man. It's a changing of the guard in the NBA. And this NBA Finals symbolizes that, you just look, pretty much what we're going to see is this is probably going to be one of the most lowest rated NBA Finals, man, we've probably seen in the last 20 years. So it doesn't have that pop, as you would say, just as far as the grand stage of the NBA Finals, man. And we've all had great memories just about the NBA Finals, man. I can just go on and on for days, man, just the epic matchups. I remember my first NBA Finals, man, actually, looking at and seeing just the gravity of just what the NBA was all about, especially at the NBA Finals level, man, was the 1984 NBA Finals. Being just a little guy, man, just in the room with my pops and uncles, man, them watching it on the floor model. And the Boston Celtics winning the NBA championship, man, as the fans stormed the court. And for me, that was just a moment, man, just as far as knowing just how real this NBA thing is, man, at the highest level of competition. And, obviously we morph into the 1990s, man. As some people would call, the best era of the NBA. You can argue that, obviously, with the 1980s or any other era, just in regards. But for me, it's a thrill, watching my childhood team, man, my neighborhood team, man, the Chicago Bulls win 6 championships in 8 seasons. Watching Michael Jordan become just a pop superstar, just across the board at all levels. And for me, like I said, this just kind of is a legacy building situation when you talk about the NBA Finals. As I mentioned, man, with the Indiana Pacers, Tyrese Halliburton, it's a guy that, most people thought, was overrated as far as an NBA player is concerned. We all heard about, the poll that went out and all of that. Just, what he did in the Olympics, pretty much being the 12th man on the team. And I bet you put some respect on his name now. I just think that for him, he's in a situation of where he can flip the whole script, man, just his whole career arc. And just being a guy that's taken seriously out here in this NBA, man, landscape. And, I'm going to go ahead and put it out there. I don't think he's a superstar, but I think he's a tier under that. Especially help spearheading and leading the team to an NBA Finals, man. You can't make light of that, going up against, on the other side of the coin, a team that all season, man, just was battling for respect. Winning 68 ball games during the season, man, having the best defensive, statistically unit in the NBA. Young head coach Mike Daigneault, man, has done a great job, man, out there in Oklahoma City. You know, obviously they got him another MVP, man, just in the fold with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Congratulations once again for the award. You know, Chet Holmgren and company. You know, Hardenstein, you know, playing a big role. Alex Caruso, man, showing his just defensive prowess out there, man. Also him and Lou Dort. Can't forget about my man Jalen Williams. And this is a team with their eyes on the prize. And, I mean, for a team to get 2 games short of winning 70 ball games, man, this is probably the most, I wouldn't say disrespected teams I've seen in a long time, but a team that most people just like, yeah, okay. And I think that because there's a lot of people that are still in love with the old guard, which would be, you know, Steph Curry's of the world and Kevin Durant's of the world and LeBron James of the world and James Harden's of the world and Kawhi Leonard's of the world. But, you know, these youngers, man, are out for it. And they trying to get it in, man. As this NBA Finals is going to be an interesting, you know, back and forth. 2 different philosophies from a standpoint of the Indiana Pacers, man. No pun intended with the name. Want to play at a certain pace. You know, you got Miles Turner, man, getting up and down the floor, man. Just, you know, with the others that they have, they've been outstanding all playoffs long, man. Nembhard in the fold. Can't forget about Benedict Mathurin over the last couple of games. He's been playing some good ball for the Indiana Pacers. And so, this is a matchup, man, that I can't wait. Because to me, this is kind of like for your, you know, classic NBA fan that love, you know, a good defensive struggle, man, but good offense as well. You know, the games ain't got to be 150 apiece. You know, just, you know, one of them 110 jump offs. It's a good situation, man. And I think this NBA Finals, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, it's going to take a hit on the ratings all day long. I just think this is going to be one of the most lowest rated NBA Finals we've seen in the last 20 seasons or so. But I think it's still going to be good ball played in this series. And, you know, I just think that from Oklahoma City standpoint, to me, they're obviously the favorites in this series. I mean, just coming from a standpoint of this team is just playing lock-up D. To me, they got over, you know, that coming-of-age moment of knocking off the Denver Nuggets, man, in Game 7, man, in the Western Conference semifinals to get themselves to the Western Conference Finals. And to me, I knew once they got there, man, just Minnesota, you know, hats off to them. They had an outstanding year. Second consecutive season getting to the Western Conference Finals. I can't make light of that. But we all knew, man, when that matchup was set that, you know, it was going to be a real situation for the Minnesota Timberwolves, man, to get out of that series. And to me, Oklahoma City, man, they deserve to be here. They proved their worth. And coming up, I'm going to get into, you know, just some strategic parts of just what I feel, just some impact players I feel that can kind of move or change that pendulum on each side. So I definitely got some analysis and breakdown just in regards to that. And also, too, I might hit you guys up with a Big 5. Yeah, I got another Big 5 coming down the slate. This is my Big 5. My Big 5 NBA Finals Game 1 moments I got coming up, man. So, once again, man, I appreciate all the love and the feedback. I appreciate your ear. We on Fire Sports Podcast. The spot. Welcome back, and we here at the NBA Finals, man. Both teams are well deserving, man. Oklahoma City Thunder versus the Indiana Pacers. For the Oklahoma City Thunder, this NBA championship, if they would win it, would be the first NBA championship in Oklahoma City. You know, those who may not know, man, the Seattle Supersonics, they actually moved from Seattle to Oklahoma City. So Oklahoma City, the Thunder still own basically, or the Supersonics, their record books are still inundated with the Oklahoma City Thunder franchise. But scrap all that. This will be the Oklahoma City Thunder first NBA championship as an organization. Sam Presti, you know, whether you want to criticize him or not, you know, he's back in the NBA Finals, man. It's been a long stretch. You know, he's made a lot, about 8,000 trades between that particular time. Last time this team has gotten to an NBA Finals with Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook. Can't forget about James Harden on that unit and Serge Ibaka. But this is a different version of the Oklahoma City Thunder. They got their own version of the MVP right now with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. You know, I just think that for the Oklahoma City Thunder, man, they just go as he goes. You know, this is a guy that got an even kill, man, as far as his attitude, man. Smooth as the other side of the pillow, as my man, you know, Stuart Scott would say back in the day. But, you know, I just think that for me, as much as I see Oklahoma City, you know, play more and more and more and more is that they're not beholden for Shea Gilgeous-Alexander to go out there and give you like a 40 piece or something like that for they have to, be able to pull out a ball game. I think that when they're at their height of their powers, man, that defense is working. Jalen Williams is, spreading, running the wings in transition. And this team getting up and down. Chet Holmgren being just that unicorn, as he can be. Hardenstein playing, good offense as well as solid defense. And this team, got them, junkyard dogs, man, with Lou Dort, also too Alex Caruso. They locked and loaded on the defensive end. So to me, when the Oklahoma City Thunder is playing at the height of their powers, that's when all of those guys are playing as a cohesive unit. And I just think that, for Mark Daigneault, just the outstanding coaching job that he's done. And what I've seen earlier in these playoffs is that, and we saw this in the regular season as well, is that he's going to bring them young guys in or bring his bench in early in the game. And to me, I just thought that now you're finally seeing it kind of pay off a little bit. Guys like Isaiah Joe. Guys, like Cason Wallace coming off your bench and giving you big time minutes. And so now this team is kind of full blossom, winning 68 ball games during the regular season, number one in every statistical category. You can name it down the board. And this is going to be a tough out. Definitely if the Indiana Pacers are going to try to knock off the Oklahoma City Thunder, man, and win their first NBA championship in franchise history, they got a tough hill to climb. Now, this team has been doubted since the playoffs has begun. The ironic part about it, man, these are the two teams that basically had the best records in the NBA, since the beginning of the top of the year. And it's well served. This is, both these teams, they don't necessarily shoot 8,000 threes. They get into, their mid-range game, get into their drive game, get into their bag. We've seen that. Now, I think that's the most impressive part about both teams is that they're both not beholden to the three, even though they can shoot the three at a high clip and they can get you up out of there with the three ball. But, to me, it's just a situation of where which team pace plays out. The Indiana Pacers, man, they want to play up tempo, but the thing about the Oklahoma City Thunder is, man, is that they deep, and they deep at the defensive end, meaning that they can bring multiple looks to multiple guys, switch it up a little bit. And I just think that, for them playing their young guys early in the season, I think this is where it's going to pay off for the Oklahoma City Thunder. I think that that's kind of, to me, the swing of this series, meaning that I like the bench from the Indiana Pacers. They got guys that come off the bench, whether it's, Nembhard, whether it's Mathurin, just guys that'll give you just them plays, energy plays just off the bench. And so can't forget about TJ McConnell, playing big time minutes, man, for the Indiana Pacers in these playoffs. And so they're equipped. To me, they got the personnel to try to pull it off. They just, to me, got to play some perfect basketball. Meaning that if they're in a situation where they're getting 10 plus turnovers a game, then this series is over in 5 games. And so to me, I just think that for the Indiana Pacers, they got a tough hill to climb up just in that. I think game number 1, obviously being out in Oklahoma City, this is the game that you got to steal. Because to me, game 1 kind of sets the test, for the series for me, especially if you're a road team. If you can come in on the road, man, and get that game number 1, that is huge. That's a huge deal. And so we'll see what it do. We'll see, in game number 1, man, which team will kind of, come out. The Oklahoma City Thunder, man, they got some big time, rest jumping off, getting rid of the Minnesota Timberwolves in 5 games. So it's been a while since this team has hit the court. And as I mentioned a little bit earlier, I just think that for the Indiana Pacers, if you want to get home court advantage in this series, you can't let this team come out in game number 1, get the crowd into the game, and come out trying to be on something. So we'll definitely see what it do as this series progresses. But I know what you're waiting on. Man. I got my predictions in this series. Man, I predicted these two teams, man, once we got to the, conference finals in each conference. I predicted these two teams to get to the NBA finals. So this was a matchup, I was looking forward to checking out. And I think most of America, ironically, is probably with the Indiana Pacers, man. It's probably being just an underdog overall. But I just think that the Oklahoma City Thunder right now, man, they're runaway train on the defensive end. Like I said, this team has been confident all season long, man, winning 68 ball games. And even if the league is watered down, as some maybe the old heads would say, winning 68 games, man, in the regular season is a lot of ball games. And I think it just shows just the work that this team has put in and just the camaraderie that they have, whether it be, with Mike Dagno being a young head coach, also too with Shea Gilgeous-Alexander being just that mild-mannered guy, being just a real good leader, bearing gifts to his teammates and all of that. So I think that, to me, is just too hard, man, for the Indiana Pacers to try to get over in a 7-game situation. I'm thinking 5 games, man, but I got Oklahoma City, man, in 6 games. I think the Indiana Pacers will definitely win one of these first 2 games, man, on the road in Oklahoma City. But I just think that the Thunder, man, as this series goes on and on, man, they just depth. They got 2 bigs who are serviceable bigs, and they're interchangeable, man, on the perimeter from a defensive standpoint. And that's the reason why, man, I got the Oklahoma City Thunder winning the NBA championship in game number 6. But definitely, man, we'll check in, just on the NBA Finals as this thing moves along, man. I hope it's a long, exciting series. I can care less about the ratings. The ratings going to be down anyway from the NBA standpoint, unless you got, LeBron or Steph Curry or somebody like that in the NBA Finals. But we'll definitely see what it do. And you thought I was going to get out of here, man, with just kind of sharing just a little bit of my thoughts, man, and just Big 5, man, Big 5 style, man, across the NBA Finals, man, and just, I said game 1 moments, man, but I'm going to just kind of say opening night of the NBA Finals in game number 1, just the game number 1s just coming into the series, just being hyped up and excited about. And for me, at number 5, man, this is a series that, for the most part, man, was just epic as far as just from a competitive standpoint. You had, to me, arguably the best point guard play in the history of the NBA Finals, man. And I'm talking about the 1988 NBA Finals, man. The Los Angeles Lakers against the Detroit Pistons. Pistons, a team that, was trying to get over the hump for years and years, man, against the Boston Celtics, man, in the East, was finally able to break through and took on the Los Angeles Lakers, a team that was going up for 5 NBA championships. Magic Johnson, team of the 80s, man. James Worthy, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and Pat Riley. Just epic, man. And so I got that coming in at number 5, man. Just me being excited, man, just about the NBA Finals and it being summertime, man, and watching Isaiah and Magic, man, put in that work. Exciting 7-game series eventually that the Lakers was able to knock off the Detroit Pistons. Can't forget about the injury to Isaiah Thomas, man. Just putting up, that big time 4th quarter, man, in the NBA Finals. Just epic, man. Just straight West Side guy, man. So got to show some love to Isaiah just on that performance. But I got that coming in at number 5. Number 4 for me. It's just an interesting series, man. Just kind of coming in and just thinking about it was. Got to talk about the first matchup, man, between the Golden State Warriors and the Cleveland Cavaliers. 2015. Golden State Warriors was a team that a lot of people thought, young ball club, man, they had just moved on from Mark Jackson, moving on to Steve Kerr as the head coach. Just as I mentioned, just a team that you seen them coming, you seen the wave coming. Steph Curry finally was just being injury free and just letting his wings spread, man, and just being eventually coming on to be the greatest NBA 3-point shooter of all time, greatest shooter of all time in any basketball slate. And so I got that coming in at number 4, obviously matching up against LeBron James, man, and the Cleveland Cavaliers. LeBron James thirsty to win another NBA championship, man. But the Golden State Warriors, man, just being able to pull that out, man, just being the first NBA championship for the Golden State Warriors, in a long time, obviously, for the first, generation or generation we in now with the Golden State Warriors with Steph Curry and Klay Thompson, man, the Splash Brothers getting their first NBA championship. I got that coming in at number 4, man. At number 3, this is an NBA Finals that, for me, it may not have been, as far as like big and epic from a standpoint of previous NBA Finals, but the 92 NBA Finals, man, between the Chicago Bulls and the Portland Trail Blazers, man. And, I ain't gonna front, man, just on this one, being a couple blocks away, literally, man, from the Chicago Stadium, man, just hyped up and geeked up, man, just hoping the Bulls can repeat as NBA champions. Had Clyde Drexler and the Portland Trail Blazers coming into the city, man, being, a team that is their second NBA Finals appearance during this stretch of the last, 3 seasons, making it in 1990 as well, losing to the Detroit Pistons. And there was some smoke out there, with Clyde Drexler and Michael Jordan. Who was the best 2 guards in the league. Clyde Drexler had an outstanding year that year for the Portland Trail Blazers. MVP candidate type of season for him. But Mike was just looking to get at something. And he was looking for any motivational piece, man, to just kind of raise himself, man, high as a legend in this NBA landscape. You know, obviously we all know what happened, man, in game number 1, man, hitting the threes, man, hitting the shoulder stroke. 35 points in the first half of game 1 of the NBA Finals, man, just kind of set the tone for the Chicago Bulls as they was able to eventually win the NBA championship in 92. So for me, yeah, man, just for personal reasons, man, I got that coming in at number 3, man, you know, especially when the Bulls won the NBA championship, man, literally, you know, walking 2 blocks away, man, from my crib, man, walking down and celebrating with Bulls fans and people all in the streets and trying to get that loot on, man. You know what it do, man. So that's definitely coming in at number 3 for me. At number 2. Number 2 to me, man, is just, it just amplifies, you know, what I consider just the kingdom of the NBA. And for me, it's the 1987 NBA Finals. You got Magic Johnson, you got Larry Bird, man, the Boston Celtics, Los Angeles Lakers. These teams, you know, matched up and locked horns all through the 1980s. And to me, this represented the tiebreaker. Because, you know, Magic, you know, the Lakers had lost to the Boston Celtics in 1984 in Game 7, man, in Boston. Spoke about that a little bit earlier. Then we had the Lakers coming back in 85, man, knocking off the Boston Celtics, man, winning the NBA championship in Boston Garden, man, for the first time any team winning a championship in Boston Garden other than the Celtics. Then we had, you know, 86, obviously, you know, the Boston Celtics was able to get and win another NBA Finals. The Lakers, you know, lost to the Rockets. But as we get to 87, this was to me the tiebreaker between Johnson and Bird. And this was to me legacy. Because even though obviously Bird is, you know, just, you know, Larry Legend himself, and Magic Johnson is just a legend beyond legends. You know, this was for bunks, as they would say, man. Shout out above the rim, man. This was for bunks. And the Lakers was able to, you know, pull off that series, man, and win that series, man, as Magic Johnson won his 4th NBA championship. And, you know, that was a series with Bird, you know, after, I believe it might have been game number 4, matter of fact, when, you know, Magic hit that little short hook over Kevin McHale, man, to bring the Lakers to victory, man, and have them go up 3-1 in that series, man. Bird just was thunderstruck about the whole situation. And you saw at that point that, you know, Magic had got pretty much the best of Bird just in that matchup as an overall, man. But I got that coming in at number 2. And at number 1, man, to put a cap on it, man, at number 1, man, for me, I got the 1991 NBA Finals, man, between the Chicago Bulls and the Los Angeles Lakers, man, coming in at number 1. You know, as a longtime Bulls fan, man, just, you know, seeing this organization, man, go through the trials and tribulations of the 1980s and, you know, just early little part of the 90s with the Detroit Pistons, trying to break through, you know, having, you know, Michael Jordan being the greatest NBA player of all time, man. You know, just seeing this team, you know, go from just a middling team to just a contender, and just coming in, it was a dream matchup. You know, we have watched the Los Angeles Lakers through the 1980s, man. It's a team that won 5 NBA championships in the decade of the 80s, and they was right back in the finals in 91. You know, just a dream matchup, man. It's like being in a dream, man. Magic versus Michael. Just remember just being, you know, a young kid, man, just geeked up for it, just locked all the way in. You know, and obviously, man, my Bulls was able to win the NBA championship, man, in 5 games, man, our first championship. As we all saw the tears flowing from Mr. Michael Jordan, man, in the locker room after the game. There's a lot of people in Chicago, man, in tears and just happy, man, just me being one of them back in the day. So that's my list, man, of just what I call opening night. You know, opening just vibes, man, going into an NBA Finals, man. Once again, man, I appreciate you guys checking me out, man. Don't forget to check your boy out on Facebook, man. We on Fire Sports Podcast. Also, too, on Twitter at We on Fire Sports. Man, also, too, man, on the podcast world, man, on Podbean. Also, too, where all podcasts can be listened to as well. Also, making my spot appearances as well on the Weekly Dog Sports Betting Podcast. Shout out to my man, Mac O'Scott and East Salim, Mr. Take the Street. And yeah, man, I appreciate the check-in, man. We'll be back, man, coming up later on in the week, man, to break down what we saw across that NBA Finals landscape. Man, I appreciate all the love and the feedback. I appreciate you. Yeah. We on Fire Sports Podcast.